The moment the scan completed, the room went silent. Not the calm, professional silence of a medical chamber, but the kind that feels wrong, as if the universe itself is holding its breath. Commander Elias Rowan noticed it immediately. The lights above him dimmed by a fraction. The soft mechanical hum that had been filling the room vanished. Even the floating diagnostic rings around his body froze in mid-rotation, suspended like confused thoughts. Across from him, the alien doctor stopped moving. Dr. Seluen had been trained never to show emotion. Her species considered emotional control a mark of intelligence. Yet now her long, silver-blue fingers hovered over the console, unmoving. Her eyes were locked on the holographic helix spinning between them. Slowly, very slowly, her pupils contracted. "This," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "cannot exist." Elias swallowed. "That bad, her?" She did not answer. Elias had come here for a routine evaluation. That was all. A mandatory post-campaign medical check required by the Interstellar Council after humanity's latest border conflict. Miss the appointment, get fined. Miss it twice, lose docking privileges. He had survived vacuum exposure, kinetic bombardment, and a failed warp jump. A medical scan was not supposed to be the thing that scared him. Dr. Ceylon finally moved, but not the way a doctor should. She reached up and cut the external data feed. Warning glyphs flared briefly, then vanished. Elias sat up halfway. "Doctor, why did you just isolate the room?" Celoen's voice was steady again, but only because she was forcing it to be. "Because if this data leaves this chamber," she said, "you will no longer be a patient." He frowned. "What does that make me instead?" She looked at him. "A problem." The holographic DNA model expanded, unfolding into layers upon layers of code, markers, and ancient patterns. Elias didn't understand any of it, but he could tell one thing. The machine was confused. Diagnostic systems were designed to flag anomalies, then correct them. This system wasn't correcting anything. It was recalculating, adapting, almost learning. Celoen's voice dropped. Human DNA is categorized. Predictable, violent, adaptable, inelegant, but simple. "Hey," Elias muttered. "We prefer efficient." She ignored him. "What I am seeing in you," she continued, "is not simple. Your genome contains recursive legacy structures. Sealed sequences designed to activate under specific cosmic conditions." She turned the display toward him. These were not created by humans. Elias stared at the spiraling helix. "Okay," he said carefully. "Then who created them?" Ceyluen hesitated. "My people call them custodian marks," she said. "They appear only in the oldest myths. Stories we teach children so they stop asking dangerous questions." "That's never worked on humans," Elias said. She almost smiled. "Almost. The custodians," she continued, "were said to be the first species to map intelligent life across the galaxy. They did not rule. They did not conquer. They prepared." "For what?" "For survival." The room grew colder as the system projected star maps, ancient ones. Worlds long destroyed. Civilizations marked not by names, but by symbols of extinction. Ceyluen gestured toward Elias's DNA. "These markers appear only in one place," she said. "In the genetic keys used to access pre-diaspora technology." Elias leaned back slowly. "You're telling me my body is a password?" "Yes." "That's uncomfortable." Celuen's hands trembled now. She clasped them behind her back, a gesture Elias recognized as restraint. "Commander Rowan," she said, "do you know why the galaxy underestimates humanity?" He thought of countless council sessions. Smug alien admirals. Polite dismissals. "Because we're loud," he offered. "Because you should not exist," she replied. Elias blinked. "Early galactic surveys marked Earth as a dead-end world," she continued. "Too unstable. Too violent. Too biologically inefficient. You were expected to wipe yourselves out before reaching your moon." "And yet," Elias said quietly. "Here we are." Selwyn looked at him with something new in her eyes. Fear. "Your species did not survive by accident," she said. "Your DNA does not evolve randomly. It remembers." The diagnostic rings around Elias suddenly reactivated. The room shook. Alarm screamed, then cut off mid-sound, overridden by a deeper signal. Symbols flooded every surface, glowing with ancient authority. Selwyn stumbled back. "The system has switched modes," she whispered. "It thinks you are authorized." Elias swung his legs off the platform. Authorized to do what? Before she could answer, the wall opposite them opened, not mechanically, but organically, unfolding into a corridor of living light. Beyond it, something waited. Something old. Something that had been silent for thousands of years. Selwyn looked at Elias, her composure finally shattered. "If you walk through that door," she said, "the galaxy will never see humans the same way again." Elias exhaled slowly. "Doctor," he said, standing, "the galaxy already doesn't understand us." He stepped toward the light. And somewhere deep in the station, a dormant system awakened, recognizing, at last, that humanity had arrived exactly as planned. The corridor did not feel like a hallway. Commander Elias Rowan knew corridors. Steel ones. Crystal ones. Even gravity-optional ones that tried to turn your stomach inside out. This was none of those. This corridor felt aware. Light flowed beneath his boots like liquid memory, responding to each step with a low harmonic pulse. Symbols rose and faded along the walls, not projected, but remembered, as if the structure itself was recalling a language it had not spoken in millennia. Behind him, Dr. Selwyn hesitated. "This place," she said quietly, "was sealed before my species learned to shape stars." Elias glanced back. "Then maybe it's overdue for visitors." She followed, though every instinct screamed not to. At the corridor's end, the space widened into a vast circular chamber. No machines. No consoles. No visible power source. Just a single structure in the center. It was not large, barely twice Elias's height, but it radiated weight. Not mass. Authority. A smooth, dark surface curved upward, etched with faint lines that pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat waiting to synchronize. Selwyn stopped dead. "The custodian core," she whispered. "It was theorized. Never proven." Elias approached instinctively. The moment he stepped closer, the chamber reacted. The floor brightened. The air thickened. A deep vibration rolled through the space, settling into Elias's bones like a remembered rhythm. Then the core spoke. Not with sound. With meaning. Genetic key confirmed. Species. Human. Status. Unregistered custodian descendant. Error. Species classification incomplete. Selwyn collapsed to one knee. Elias didn't even notice. He was staring at the expanding hologram now unfolding above the core, an image of the galaxy, stripped of borders, politics, and pride. Worlds flickered. Then, disappeared. Elias felt it in his chest. "This is extinction data," he said. "Yes," the core replied. "And survival data." Images shifted. Civilizations rose. Advanced. Brilliant. Then stagnated. Then vanished. A pattern emerged, clear and horrifying. Every species that reached a certain level of technological perfection stopped adapting. They optimized. They stabilized. They became fragile. Selwyn's voice shook. "We believed progress was the goal." "It is not," the core answered. "Adaptation is." The hologram focused. On Earth. Primitive. Chaotic. Scarred by war, climate collapse, near extinction, again and again. Yet humanity persisted. Not because it was strong. Because it refused to settle. The core highlighted Elias's DNA. "Humans do not perfect solutions," it said. "They improvise. They rebuild. They survive failure and call it experience." Selwyn looked at Elias like she was seeing him for the first time. "You were chosen," she whispered. The core corrected her. No. Another sequence played. Ancient beings, tall, luminous, neither organic nor mechanical, observing early Earth from afar. Custodians. They did not interfere. They seeded. Tiny markers. Dormant. Adaptive. Not to control humanity. To learn from it. Elias clenched his fists. So we were an experiment. Yes, the core replied. And the final variable. Seren stood slowly. My people feared humans, she said. We believed your unpredictability was dangerous. It is, the core agreed. That is why you survived. The chamber shook again. New alerts appeared, external ones. Saloen's eyes widened. The Council, she said. They've detected the activation. They're rerouting fleets. How many? Elias asked. All of them. The core dimmed its projections. Decision required, it said. Custodian protocol demands activation only during extinction-level convergence. Elias looked at the star map. He saw the signs now. Resource collapse. Rising wars. Failing treaties. The galaxy was repeating its mistakes. So what happens if I say no? He asked. Then history will proceed, the core answered. As it always has. And if I say yes? The core paused. A new path becomes possible. Saloen stepped closer to Elias. You don't owe the galaxy anything, she said quietly. They feared you. Undermined you. Used you as soldiers. Elias thought of Earth. Of messy cities. Stubborn people. Creativity born from desperation. He placed his hand on the core. I won't save the galaxy, he said. But humans can help it survive. The core's surface flared. Custodian sequence initiated. Humanity recognized as adaptive guardians. Protocol status. Active. Somewhere far away, ancient systems awakened. And across the galaxy, every advanced civilization received the same impossible message. Humans have been authorized. Saren whispered, awed and afraid. What have you just done? Elias smiled grimly. Introduce the galaxy to our way of fixing problems. The message reached the galaxy in less than a heartbeat. Not through standard comms. Not through quantum relays or hyperspace beacons. It arrived as a system-level interruption, the kind reserved for stellar disasters and extinction alerts. Every major civilization received it at the same moment. Custodian protocol active. Humanity. Adaptive guardian class. Authorization confirmed. Across council chambers, war bridges, and research sanctuaries, the reaction was the same. Silence. Then fear. On the crystal world of Vila, High Strategist Threx shattered his command table with a single strike. This is impossible, he hissed. Humans are unstable. Emotional. Reckless. Yes, replied his aide quietly. That may be the point. On the biohabs of the KNN Combine, elders whispered prayers meant for forgotten gods. On the machine cities of Ilex Prime, autonomous intelligences halted mid-calculation, unable to resolve the paradox. Humans had always been tolerated, never trusted. Now they were recognized. And that terrified everyone. Commander Elias Rowan felt none of that yet. He was too busy trying not to pass out. The custodian core had not asked permission when it finished its activation. Energy surged outward in waves, pouring into him, not painfully, but insistently, like knowledge that refused to be ignored. He saw fragments. Not visions. Memories that were not his. Species that solved every problem perfectly, and died because of it. Civilizations that eliminated risk, and lost the ability to adapt. Elias dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Selen caught him before he hit the floor. This isn't supposed to happen, she said, panic slipping into her voice. Custodian interfaces were never meant for direct biological integration. Elias laughed weakly. Story of my life. The core dimmed. Integration level minimal, it said. Human neuroplasticity exceeds predicted thresholds. Sailoren stared at Elias. You're absorbing it. Yeah, he muttered. Feels like my brain just ran a marathon through history. Before either of them could recover, the station shook violently. This time, it wasn't ancient systems awakening. It was incoming fire. Sailoren's wrist console flared to life, overriding her earlier lockdown. Her face drained of color. They are here already. Who's they? Elias asked, even though he already knew. The Council Enforcement Fleet, she said. 17 vessels. All top tier. Elias pushed himself to his feet. That was fast. They were waiting, Sailoren said bitterly. They always feared something like this. The core projected a tactical overlay, human-readable without Elias asking for it. That's new, he noted. Custodian alignment adapting, the core replied. Human preference for transparency detected. Outside the station, space lit up with containment fields and weapon locks. A broadcast cut through all channels. The voice was calm, controlled, powerful. This is Council Executor Varesh Tal, it announced. Human Commander Elias Rowan, you are ordered to surrender yourself immediately. Custodian activation is a Class Omega violation. Elias glanced at Sailoren. Do they always sound that polite when they're about to kidnap someone? Yes, she said. It's considered respectful. Varesh Tal continued. Humanity has proven itself useful, he said. But this authorization cannot be allowed to stand. You are too unpredictable. Elias stepped forward, facing the projection. You mean we don't behave the way you want us to? A pause. Then Varesh Tal replied, colder now. Exactly. The core spoke again. Council records confirm, it said. Humanity demonstrates highest survival probability under non-compliance. Elias grinned. That tracks. Sailoren's voice dropped to a whisper. They'll glass the station if they have to. Elias looked around the chamber, the ancient walls, the living light, the core that had waited eons for someone like him. No, he said. They won't. Why not? Because they're afraid, Elias said. And fear makes people predictable. He placed his hand on the core again. Can you do something? He asked. Yes, the core replied. But it will be unconventional. Elias didn't hesitate. Perfect. Outside, the enforcement fleet began charging weapons. Inside the chamber, the custodian core sent a signal, not an attack, not a defense. A demonstration. Across the galaxy, dormant custodian systems flickered to life, not under alien control, but human-compatible interfaces unlocking for the first time. Old shipyards. Forgotten archives. Abandoned defense grids. Not weapons. Tools. Varesh Tal's voice returned, strained now. What did you just do? Elias met the projection's gaze. I gave humanity access, he said, to all the stuff you were too scared to use. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't disbelief. It was realization. And as council fleets began to retreat, not because they were defeated, but because they were suddenly uncertain, Sailoren understood something terrifying and incredible. Humanity didn't need to conquer the galaxy. They just needed to change how it solved problems. And the galaxy had no idea what to do with that. The Council Enforcement Fleet did not retreat far. They pulled back just enough to surround the station like a tightening ring, weapons charged but silent, waiting for permission they no longer trusted themselves to give. Fear had replaced certainty. And fear, Elias knew, was dangerous. Inside the custodian chamber, the air vibrated with quiet activity. The ancient systems were no longer dormant. They were listening, not just to Elias, but to the wider galaxy. Sailoren stood beside him, arms folded tightly across her chest. You've destabilized centuries of power balance, she said. Elias didn't look away from the star map hovering before them. Good, he replied. It needed it. The core shifted its projection. New signals appeared, dozens at first, then hundreds. civilian worlds, research collectives, fringe species the Council barely acknowledged. They were responding. Not with weapons. With questions. They're reaching out to you, Saloen said softly. Not the Council. You. Elias felt it again, that strange pressure behind his eyes. Not control. Not commands. Context. They are scared, he said. But curious. That combination has destroyed civilizations, Saloen warned. Only when curiosity is punished, Elias replied. A new alert flashed, hostile this time. 3 Council-aligned fleets broke formation and jumped in closer, ignoring protocol. Saloen stiffened. The VAR Dominion, she said. They don't negotiate. They conquer. The broadcast cut in without formalities. A towering figure filled the chamber's projection, scaled armor, burning eyes, mandibles carved with warglyphs. I am Overlord Kethvar, it roared. Custodian relics belong to those strong enough to claim them. Humans will surrender control immediately. Elias sighed. Every galaxy has one of these guys. Kethvar snarled. Your species is soft. You adapt because you must. We dominate because we can. Elias leaned forward. You ever wonder why the custodians didn't pick you? Silence. Then laughter, harsh and confident. They feared us, Kethvar said. No, Elias replied calmly. They tested you. He gestured to the core. Can you show him? He asked. The core complied. The chamber filled with a simulation. An ancient scenario. The VAR Dominion's ancestors, strong, efficient, ruthless, encountering a crisis, a cascading stellar failure. The optimal solution was clear. They chose it. And it failed. Because it assumed the universe would behave. It never did. The simulation rewound. This time, humans appeared, primitive, under-equipped, terrified. They tried something reckless. Something inefficient. Something stupid. It worked. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But it worked. Kethvar's expression shifted. Rage gave way to something else. Doubt. You are not superior, Kethvar growled. You are lucky. Elias nodded. Absolutely, he said. We just survive long enough to learn. The Overlord raised his claw. Fire, he commanded. Nothing happened. Confusion rippled through the VAR fleet. The core spoke, its voice steady. VAR weapon systems rely on custodian-era stabilizers, it said. Human authorization now required. Kethvar froze. Elias met his gaze. We didn't lock you out, Elias said. We just didn't let you break things anymore. The VAR fleet powered down, not defeated, but neutralized. Across the galaxy, others were watching. Some with anger. Some with relief. Some with hope. Saloen exhaled slowly. You just ended a war without firing a shot. Elias shook his head. No, he said. I showed them a different way to fight. The core highlighted new signals. Independent coalitions forming. Shared research networks. Joint problem-solving initiatives. Messy. Inefficient. Human. Saloen looked at Elias, or unmistakable now. You're changing what power means. Elias thought of Earth again. Of people arguing, failing, rebuilding, arguing again. Power isn't control, he said. It's giving people room to try. Outside the station, the Council fleets withdrew further, not in defeat, but in reconsideration. The galaxy had not accepted humanity's role. But it could no longer ignore it. And somewhere, deep within ancient systems that had waited too long to be used, one truth echoed clearly at last. Humanity was not the strongest species. They were the most adaptable. And that made all the difference. The galaxy did not change overnight. That was the first thing Elias Rowan understood. There were no celebrations. No declarations of unity. No sudden peace. Fear did not vanish just because humans had been recognized by something ancient and powerful. Fear adapted. And for the first time, the galaxy was learning to do that too. The custodian station became the most watched location in known space. Not by fleets. By listeners. Requests poured in, not demands, not threats, but uncertain questions from worlds that had never been invited to speak before. A mining species whose sun was failing. A research collective trapped in recursive logic loops. A civilization facing extinction because their perfect climate model could not account for chaos. Selwyn stood beside Elias as he reviewed them. "They're asking you to decide," she said. "To judge." Elias shook his head. "No," he said. "They're asking us to help them think." The core projected a warning. Centralized decision-making increases failure probability. Elias smiled. "Yeah," he said. "That's why we don't do that." Instead of issuing commands, humanity did something the galaxy had never seen at scale. They shared unfinished ideas. Human engineers opened custodian archives and left notes behind. Human scientists published theories marked likely wrong. Human diplomats invited species that hated each other into the same problem-solving rooms. It was loud, inefficient, emotional. It worked. Because when one idea failed, 10 others were already arguing in its place. The Council attempted one final move. Not force. Narrative. They declared humanity dangerous. Unstable. A contaminant to galactic order. Executor Vareshtal addressed the galaxy. "Humans invite disorder," he warned. "They replace structure with chaos." Elias responded once. Not with authority. With history. He broadcast Earth. Not its victories. Its failures. Wars. Plagues. Collapses. Near extinctions. And then, recovery. Rebuilding with fewer resources than before. Laughing during disaster. Creating art while the world burned. "We don't promise safety," Elias said. "We promise we won't stop trying." The response was immediate. Worlds disconnected from Council oversight. Species began forming adaptive alliances, not permanent empires. Rigid doctrines cracked. The custodian core issued its final evaluation. Humanity status. Confirmed. Role. Not guardians. Role. Examples. Selwyn read it twice. "They didn't choose you to protect the galaxy," she said softly. Elias nodded. "They chose us to remind it how to survive." Years later, historians would argue about the moment everything changed. Some would say it was the activation of the core. Others would point to the silenced VAR fleet. They would be wrong. The real turning point was quieter. A small species, facing extinction, asked humans for help. Humans answered, not with certainty, not with perfection, but with ideas, mistakes, and stubborn hope. The species survived. Barely. But that was enough. Elias never became a ruler. He refused every title offered. Instead, he became something far more dangerous. A pattern. And across the galaxy, whenever a civilization faced the impossible, they asked the same question. What would humans try first? The answer was never elegant. But it was always alive. And that, the custodians had known all along, was the secret the galaxy had forgotten. Perfection ends. Adaptation continues. Humanity endures.